Emily Mallory of Emily's Papercrafts. Thanks for joining me. Today I want to show you how to create a cheerful tulip themed wall hanging. Let's get started. In your kit you should have a background and a white fence and some quilling paper. We'll get started by first laying our fence. So decide how much of the background you want to see through the fence. Remember though, we're going to be covering it with some leaves and tulips here in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and trim it down a little bit just so it looks like there is a gate in the middle of the wall hanging. So I'm just going to trim off some of the side pieces there. And I think I'm going to want a few more than 3 on the other side. So hence your second piece of gate. So again, decide how much of a gate you want. And then go ahead and trim it. Remember, on the sides, no one's really going to see, so it doesn't matter if it's not completely perfect in terms of a nice cut. All right, I kind of like the way that's looking. However, for the moment, I'm going to forbear to glue it down and just create some tulips and leaves first to make sure once I start positioning those that I'm happy with the way the fence is lining up. Let's get started with our flowers. So I'm using some shades of pink today for our tulips. However, they can be any color. And then you need them to be approximately 8 inches. It can be any size you wish. Actually, it looks like I have less than enough to do 3 that are 8 inches, so I'll get some that are a little bit different size, which is the way that they probably would be out in a tulip field. So we're going to take our quilling tool, we're going to find the slot, place the piece of paper inside of the slot, and roll to the end. I'm not applying a lot of pressure here with my left hand, I'm just more or less holding the paper in place. And once we get done, we're going to go ahead and pull it off with a tool. We're going to let it expand. It'll either sort of naturally stop expanding on its own, or you get to decide it's big enough. When it's big enough, you're going to put a little bit of glue on the inside of the tail and smooth down the tail and pinch it. It'll help cement the tail there while working on creating our shape. So then I'm going to take my right hand here and pull the paper over a little bit more and pinch it again. And I've just made what is called a bunny ear or a tulip shape. So we're going to create several of these for our tulip landscape. So again, the tail goes in the slot of the quilling tool and you're going to roll to the end. Pull it off, let it expand to become a loose circle. Put a little bit of glue there on the inside of that tail. Smooth it down and pinch it to shape it into a teardrop. I'm going to pull the paper over a little bit and pinch it again to create a bunny ear. So now I have 2. And here's a 3rd. Pulling it over to create that bunny ear. Okay, so now I have 3, and then I'm going to bring over 2 that I had done previously just to help speed up this video, but they're made exactly the same way. I'll show you how to put the stems on here in a second. And I'm just determining how many more tulips I will want, because I'm also going to create a bunch of leaves. I think 5 is going to be about right. Okay, so let's make some leaves. If you want more flowers, keep making more flowers. Push pause on the video and then come back when you have enough tulips to continue, and we'll make some leaves. So I'm taking a full length of sage green paper from Quilled Creations, and I'm going to run my finger along the whole length of it, just like you would if you were going to use a piece of ribbon to wrap a present, and it's going to get all curly, which is what we want. We're going to take the curliest end, and we're going to take that tail and we're going to roll it over so it makes like a teardrop shape. And then we're going to pinch it at the base and wrap it around in increasingly wide or bigger loops. Every time we're pinching as we go around there at that point. You get to decide if you want your piece of paper to use 2 links, to be very, very full leaf, or if you're okay with a slightly less than full length, or slightly less full. So there, I had a little bit of an extra tail, so I just took my fingers and ripped the tail off. Then I'm going to put a little bit of glue there on that inside of the tail again. I'm just going to line it up there with the pinch, that point, the base of my leaf. And now I have a beautiful sort of swirly leaf. However, I want kind of more pointed leaves, so I'm going to pinch and shape the top of the leaf. So the shaping I just did with my fingernail. If it looks too skinny to you, you can just push down on all those points and then shape it as you wish. It's okay if it springs out a little bit. We're going to glue it down in a minute. And then any leftover tails that we have, we're going to use for our stems. So don't worry about having a few of those left over. So let's make a few more leaves. Again, you're going to take a full length of green paper. This is 18 inches. You could also do with 24 inches, or you could glue several of these together to create a much longer piece of paper. So again, I'm just taking that tail, folding it under, creating a loop, pinching it, and looping it again without trying to catch the wall hanging underneath. So again, you get to decide how much space you want between all of your loops. The more space, the taller it's going to get. The less space, the thicker or wider your leaf is going to become. All right, so again, I've got a little bit of a tail because it's not going to wrap all the way around again. I could glue it halfway, but it sometimes leaves a weird sort of glue chunk. So I'm just going to take and tear off the tail there at the base of that point. A little bit of glue on the inside of that tail. Smooth it down. And then pinch the top and shape it. All right, let's make another couple of leaves. Again, just rolling it, pinch, looping, pinch, loop, pinch, until you get to the end of your paper. If you wish to have smaller leaves, that is totally fine. You don't have to use the full length of paper. Sometimes I even tear my paper in half to begin with, so I'm forced to use less paper overall. All right, one more leaf and then we'll start arranging. These particular leaves don't have a name as far as I know. I call them my little cheaty leaves because I'm not using my quilling tool, so I can get a bigger shape than if I were to roll or quill the paper. All right, since this one is going to go most of the way over the top, that little glue bump that's going to happen will mostly get hidden. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this one longer. Gotta wait for the glue to set a little bit, and then I'm just gonna pinch it just like I did with all of the other ones. All right, let's look at our sort of our wandering mess here a little bit. Position our fence. I want my tulips to go up over the top, and I just noticed I don't have little knobs on the other side, so I'd better get rid of my little fence knobs on this side so it looks like there would be a gate there. Always good to go back and check your details as you're getting ready to commit yourself to living with them. Because I know this is going to go in a frame, I'm going to leave a gap of about 1/4 of an inch, a generous 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Because I know when it gets framed, they're going to need that much space to work with the mats that will go around in the shadow box. So right now I'm just kind of eyeballing it, laying it out to see if I need more tulips or more leaves. I'm not too concerned yet that all of my tulips don't have leaves or stems. It's just more of a, how am I doing with overall numbers? Okay, I think I can get it to work with what I've got. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just dump the whole thing off. I'm gonna start first by putting the stems on my tulips. So we're gonna go back and find those little strips left over from our leaves. And I'm just gonna glue for the short edge, the narrow edge, to the base of each one of my tulips. I'm not going to worry about the length of the stem at this point. It's always easier to trim it than it is to try to make it longer. And I'll risk doing one really short. Do I want a really short one? Sure. Let's live boldly. Okay, while my tulips and stems are drying, let's work on gluing down our fence. So I'm going to start with the short edge just because that's the side that I'm most wanting to sort of line up with that green background in the sky. So just put a little bit of glue on the back side of the fence. You don't need to have glue on every single rung. Just make sure you don't have globs because it is going to come oozing from the backside when we put it down on the background. Whoop. And I guess the tulip is already ready to get planted by it. All right, now that I've got my shorter side that I was more wanting to line up, it'll be easy to line up the longer side. Another option for the fence, if you wanted to add a lot more depth and you wanted to, what should I say, fuss or fiddle with your quilling a little bit more, you could always put some narrow double-sided foam dimensional tape that's sticky on both sides, hence the double-sidedness, behind your fence, so that way the fence pops up. The trick then will be getting your quilling to tuck sort of underneath it, so that way the fence could sort of sit on top of part of your quilled leaves. Line up that side. Looks good. Commit myself to it. All right. Next, we're going to start with gluing down the leaves. I realize it makes probably more sense to start with the flowers, but the flowers we're going to be able to pull down between the leaves. So it's actually going to be really easy to add the leaves here in a minute. I'm going to start with my gate post area and just kind of line up all of my leaves. I'm okay with my leaves going well below the fence, just because I don't know that I want all of my leaves sticking above the fence. So on the back side of my leaf, I'm going to put a layer of glue. I'm especially going to try to make sure that I catch all of the base parts and get rid of a volunteer. And just a little bit here on the top part, because this base here will hold the whole leaf in place. And then I'm hoping to be able to just use 2 leaves on this side. So I'm going to go for one of my wider ones. Make sure you're lining up the direction that you want your leaves to be pointing. So again, more glue on the base. Then up on the points, just because it's going to seep through a little bit more easily up there on the top. Perfect, there'll be room for at least 1, if not 2 tulips right there. So now I'm going to move to the other side. Sort of figure out which way I want my leaves to be. Nope, I liked it better the other way. Which way I want them all to be curving. Again, lots of glue down there on the base, on that edge, the narrow edge. And then next I'm actually going to go way down to this edge, just so I know how much space I need to fill in with my remaining leaves. Rather than building across and ending up with just enough of a gap, but not enough of a gap for an entire leaf. It'll be easier to fudge the space as I go across, rather than wishing I'd thought through my leaves on the way over. Right. And one of my leaves is nicely deciding to help with some beautiful details and is wanting to pop up, which is awesome. Add some extra dimension there. I haven't glued these 3 down yet just because I'm curious which way I'm going to be happiest with the look. Because I added so much curve to some of them. I like it, so let's commit with some glue. Again, lots of glue down there on the base. Remembering to leave a little bit of space, because as the glue touches the paper, it's going to want to naturally expand some anyway. Which is another reason why I'm working towards the center here rather than from one side to the other. So that way I will know with this one exactly where I need to sort of either cram it in or pull it over to one side. Perfect. Now for some tulips. So I think I'm going to try to squeeze 2 in over here. So I'm going to shape the leaves kind of like what we did with the beginning of our leaves. So I'm just shaping the stems by running my finger along it. A little bit is going to go a long way, and I don't want it to be like bending over into the leaf. And I'm just going to wiggle it between parts of the leaf there. And this one's already got a little bit of a nice curve to it. Again, I haven't glued them down. I'm just kind of making sure that I like where everything's ending up, the heights of them all. It's going to be a lot easier to adjust all of that right now than it will once we put some glue on the back side of our tulips. Okay, I want that one to come down. Okay, I'm liking it. So now we have 2 options. We can either pull the tulips out and then put the glue, or we could just glue the stems in place, or we can very carefully put some glue on the back side. I'm kind of leaning toward a mix of both, just because then some of my tulips will look like they're springing up out of the leaves rather than lying flat there into the fence. So I gave myself way too much glue. I'm gonna take a little bit off. And then I'm just gonna line it up and kind of tuck it between the base of the stem and the leaf, just so it will tack right there. Go back and take some of my excess glue again. Do the same thing here to that other stem. It's not going to need to be a lot, because once that little bit of glue sets, and then if you're putting this in a frame, you could even put glue right up over the top of the stems and the leaves to hold it in place, because no one's going to see it by the time a mat gets put on top of your wall hanging. Okay, so these guys are going to be a little bit trickier. So you're just looking to see where the paper touches and then putting your glue there. And then if you have even a third pin, you can take where there's that gap and just force those papers to touch. And it looks like I've used up enough of this glue. So then this one isn't really touching anywhere until it gets way up here by these leaves. So then I'm going to try to go in a little bit further. To just touch that stem and leaf together. Perfect. And then we had one more over here. This one I'm going to go ahead and pull out. And then pull it on through so that way it will catch on those leaves. Fantastic. Now we just need to trim off our stems. I'm not going to worry about those two. Well, that one might need to be a little bit more for the mat. Perfect. And there you have a very beautiful tulip or springtime wall hanging ready to be taken and matted and framed in a shadow box. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.